We make thousands of decisions every day, believing that every choice we make is an expression of absolute freedom, that we are the full-fledged creators of our own lives. But is this belief the greatest illusion our mind has created, simply to avoid going mad from the feeling of total determinacy? Think about it. Have you ever had the feeling that your life has already been written by someone, like the script of a grand drama where you are merely an actor? Today, we will dive into philosophy's most acute conflict, determinism versus free will, and Omar Khayyam will give his answer. This answer might change your attitude towards yourself forever if you are brave enough to accept it. This very answer is encoded in his famous Rubaiyat, which always make me pause and take a deep breath, reflecting on their essence and merciless truthfulness. Khayyam addresses us with ruthless directness, using the archetypal image of the potter and the clay to explain our place in the universe. Listen to this translation. It is like a strike that immediately puts everything in its place, leaving no room for doubt about the truth. Here it is. The potter made you out of clay, gave you life and all your forms. Can you, as an innocent work, judge the master for his charms? This Rubaiyat is the central point of our discussion today about who we truly are, the master who creates or the clay that merely takes shape.
For those who cherish timeless, refined literature, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam is more than a book. It's a classic you'll return to. A perfect gift and a graceful addition to any library, this edition reveals new depths with every reading. The direct purchase link is below the video.
We are accustomed to perceiving Omar Khayyam solely as a poet who celebrated wine and the transience of life, but this is merely the surface of his extraordinary story. In reality, we are dealing with a titan of thought who was an outstanding mathematician, astronomer, and philosopher of his time, and whose intellect was sharper than any sword. He created a calendar more accurate than the modern Gregorian one and solved cubic equations using geometry, which was an incredible breakthrough in science. His worldview was deeply rooted in the exact sciences and logic, and not just in a creative impulse, as is often the case with poets. This is crucial because when such a person speaks of fate, they speak not from the position of a lyricist, but from the position of a scientist who sees the patterns of the universe. His philosophy is not merely a feeling or lyrical experience, but a logical conclusion drawn from years of observing the world and its relentless laws. As an astronomer, Khayyam saw the flawless, unchanging mechanics of celestial body movement and sensed that these same laws apply to human life, albeit on a smaller scale. He saw how every star has its precise trajectory, and the question arose, why should man be an exception to this order and possess absolute freedom? Think about it. Can anything in the universe happen completely by chance if we know the laws of gravity, inertia, and the conservation of energy? This scientific rigor is what makes his Rubaiyat about fate so convincing and weighty for the thinking person. He lived in an era dominated by strict religious dogmatism, which often replaced genuine philosophy with blind obedience that limited intellectual development. Khayyam criticized blind faith and hypocrisy, especially among religious figures who merely restricted freedom of thought, using religion for manipulation. He saw how people use the idea of fate as an excuse for their own passivity, or conversely, as an argument to condemn others for not succeeding. His Rubaiyat were a call for honesty with oneself, for recognizing the limitations that reality imposes on us, which is the first step toward wisdom. Thus, his words are not just poetry, they are an intellectual resistance against a simplistic understanding of the world, which is what makes him a genius. He was one of the few who dared to combine the knowledge of the infinity of the cosmos with the transience and finiteness of human existence in time. This paradox forms the foundation of his philosophy. The more you know about the laws of the universe, the smaller your own freedom seems, and the deeper the realization of limitations. Khayyam understood that our time here is but a moment, and our lives are subject to endless cause and effect relationships like a chain reaction. This intellectual honesty and willingness to face the truth makes his figure eternal and unique, albeit somewhat fatalistic. That is why his perspective on the clay and the potter is so fundamental to our discussion today. Determinism, simply put, asserts that all events, including our actions, are inevitably determined by prior events, making the future predictable if one has complete information. It resembles a chain reaction that started long before our birth and will have no end, as every cause begets an effect. Khayyam, essentially, was an early metaphorical determinist who merely observed this cause and effect rule in nature. He saw how every form, every decision, is the consequence of previous forms and decisions that cannot be undone or altered. The scientist in him refused to believe in randomness as the driving force of the universe, because order reigns supreme in the world. Imagine a simple example. You decided to drink coffee today instead of tea, and you consider this a free choice. But is it really? Perhaps yesterday you slept poorly, so you need caffeine. The day before yesterday, your friend recommended a new high-quality bean, and a month ago you bought a shiny new coffee machine. Your coffee choice was not free. It was simply the inevitable result of a whole series of circumstances that compelled you to reach for the cup rather than the tea bag. Did you have a true, unconditioned freedom to choose something else had you been in the exact same conditions? Khayyam, looking at this, saw a clay vessel whose shape was determined by the speed of the wheel's rotation and the irreversible pressure of the potter's fingers. Even in our language, we constantly use words that confirm this lack of control. The stars aligned. It was not meant to be. It was not my fault. Or, I just got unlucky. We instinctively understand that many external factors, genetics, environment, economics, politics, shape us and our opportunities. You did not choose your parents, place of birth, or historical era, and this fundamentally determined your starting position in life. With this Rubai, Khayyam is precisely saying, you are merely clay that already has a certain form and composition, defined by these circumstances. Our freedom, if it exists, is highly limited by external factors that act like invisible walls. The Rubai about the potter is the strongest, simplest, and at the same time, the deepest metaphor for this idea of inevitable determinacy that governs our lives. The potter is the totality of all causes, laws of physics, historical circumstances, and genetics that have shaped us into the form in which we currently exist. The clay is us, with our unique yet determined form, our talents and flaws that we received at the moment of our birth. This is not about punishment or reward. It is simply a statement of fact regarding the architecture of the universe that operates by clear rules. It hurts us to admit this, but is it not a necessary step toward genuine, honest self-knowledge? Who then is this mystical potter in Khayyam's philosophy, and how should we interpret him? This is not necessarily God in the traditional religious sense, as we are accustomed to thinking, but rather the first cause of all causes. The potter is the primal cause, the unrelenting law of the universe, the totality of all forces that determined this specific form and operates completely dispassionately. It is the force that makes the river flow to the ocean and compels the clay to submit to the wheel's rotation. It is perfect order. His actions cannot be judged by the categories of good or bad because he is simply the only one who has access to the entire map of cause and effect relationships. We, the clay, are the innocent works, as the poet says. We did not choose our form, but we received it at the moment of our creation. The clay is our physical essence, our character, our limitations, and our talents, and all of this is a given. This is the material from which we are molded, and its quality was determined before our birth, according to the laws of genetics and circumstances. Our task as the clay is to realize our own structure, our cracks, and our strength, and not to dream of a form that is genetically or socially unavailable to us. The key question of the Rubaiyat that demands an honest answer is, can you, as an innocent work, judge the master for his charms? We constantly judge the master for our flaws and failures. Why am I not as smart as him? Why is my life so difficult? Khayyam considers this absurd, as the clay has no idea about the potter's entire design and cannot see the whole picture. To judge is to ascribe human motives and limitations to the master, whereas he operates with cosmic, universal laws. And what is charms, or beauty in this context, if the potter creates not only perfect vases? It is not necessarily aesthetic perfection or an ideal imposed on us by society. It is the perfection of the form that corresponds to the universe's design. Every person, from the potter's perspective, has their own ideal, determined form that is unique and inimitable. Even if this form seems broken or imperfect to us, for the universe, it fits perfectly into the overall pattern. Our true test is to find the beauty of our own form and not to try to become another vessel, which is a waste of time. At first glance, Khayyam's conclusion is terrifying. Free will, as we imagine it, does not exist, and we are merely puppets in the hands of fate. If we are just clay, why even try? Why struggle if everything is already decided and predetermined? This thought is paralyzing. It reduces our efforts to a meaningless waste of time because the outcome is already known. Khayyam acknowledges that we are responsible for our actions, but he also sees that these actions are merely a chain of inevitable consequences that could not have been otherwise. Therefore, he calls for acceptance, for a degree of fatalism, but not a passive fatalism, rather an aware one. But let's look deeper. The recognition that you are the clay, paradoxically, grants true freedom by releasing you from excessive pressure. When you stop fighting the fact of your determined form, you can focus on what you actually can do without dissipating your energy on futile efforts. We may not choose the wind that blows, but we can slightly adjust the sails of our boat, and this is our only true power. This small area is where Khayyam leaves us space for action, for enjoying the moment, and for deep awareness. It is not the freedom of choice, it is the freedom of awareness of our choices and the acceptance of their consequences. The main lesson lies in acceptance. We must stop judging the master and accept the form he has given us, without resentment or self-condemnation. This does not mean indifference or giving up effort. It means deep honesty with oneself regarding one's capabilities and limitations. You are not bronze to be an unbreakable monument, but you are a beautiful, unique jug, created for a unique, specific purpose. This honesty frees us from the constant internal conflict of, I should be different, allowing us to live in the here and now. In the modern world, dominated by the cult of you can do anything and be the potter of your life, Khayyam's philosophy sounds like a soothing blow of truth. We are constantly told, if you are not successful, you simply didn't try hard enough, which places an unbearable burden upon us. This is the pressure that makes us feel guilty for not becoming the potters of our lives, even though we are merely the clay taking shape. Khayyam frees us from this unrealistic oppression by saying, do not blame yourself for not being able to change your basic, given materials. Think about social media, where everyone tries to show an ideal form that doesn't actually exist and constantly compares themselves to others. We, like vessels on a shelf, continuously compare ourselves to prettier jugs or more expensive vases, creating an intolerable life for ourselves. This comparison process is a direct judgment of the master for his charms, and Khayyam condemns it as a senseless and self-destructive process. Stop looking at others and start appreciating the uniqueness of your own form, even if it is not Instagrammable or does not meet someone else's ideals. Khayyam's philosophy does not remove responsibility. It ingeniously reorients it toward the inner world and self-realization. Responsibility is now not about becoming someone else, but about realizing the potential of your own form completely and becoming the best version of yourself. If you are a mug for water, you must be the best water mug, not a poor copy of a vase that is untrue to its essence. This is a deep internal liberation from socially imposed expectations, which grants peace and true value. The acceptance of one's form is the highest act of wisdom that Khayyam teaches us. It means finding peace with oneself. It means not fighting your nature, but working with it as a given, unique material, utilizing its best qualities. Think about what you can do right now, at this point in space and time, with the resources you have been given, and do not complain about what you lack. This requires courage, to acknowledge your limitations without falling into despair or self-judgment, and to continue living. When you understand that you are the clay governed by the potter, you find an unexpected peace and inner harmony that you previously only dreamed of. All anxiety related to the wrong choice or lost opportunities dissolves, because you realize that everything happened as it was meant to. After all, there was no other choice than the one that was made, and you should not punish yourself for it. Only one path remains for us: to live this moment as fully as possible, with gratitude for the fact that the form was given at all and that we are able to exist. True freedom, according to Khayyam, lies not in choice, but in the attitude towards the absence of choice, which is the only thing that truly belongs to us. This is a kind of Zen. You cannot change the past, you cannot fully control the future, but you can change your attitude towards this eternal fact. To be an innocent work is a gift that removes the burden of responsibility for the architecture of the universe and leaves only the joy of existence. Therefore, stop judging the master. So, who are you? The clay or the potter? Omar Khayyam's answer is unequivocal. You are a beautiful, though innocent, vessel of clay, and your duty is to accept your unique form. This challenge requires philosophical maturity and honesty from us, so I propose we start contemplating right now in the comments. Write down whether you feel like the clay flowing with the current, or still the potter holding the reins of fate in your hands, and how you live with that. Don't forget to subscribe to the Garden of Rubaiyat channel so you don't miss the next deep analyses and unique ideas. See you in the eternal garden of wisdom.